Alright, welcome back. Now, we're going to break down the ESWC. It's in Paris. I'll be heading there in the morning. This video will be up in the morning as well, so I'm heading there today. Anyway, we need to talk about ESWC. A lot of talent on display, a lot of American teams. Well, 3 American teams, the rest pretty much European. Now, some of these matchups I'm going to gloss over, and I'll gloss over because obviously one of the teams is very one-sided. I don't think that team's really going to progress, and I'm going to spend some time on them. But then I'll just move on, because that's it. You don't want to just hear me talk about how they're going to get smashed for 20 minutes. So let's jump straight into then. Group A, Optic, Supremacy, Millenium, and Giants. Let's be perfectly honest here. The number one teams that end up winning their Season 1 finals are both in this group. Infused managed to get first seed. They did. We'll move on. It's happened. Leave it. Which means that we're going to see Optic versus Supremacy. Now, I don't think you should sleep on Supremacy. It's the old LDLC team. I don't think they're a bad team. They're a good team. Remains to be seen if they're a great team. And even if they were a great team, they're going against an elite level team. Not an elite level team, the elite level team. Optic Gaming, the number one team for a lot of people in the world right now. And if you're being perfectly honest, Supremacy lose this. They lose it hard. It's really easy to call a 3-0. I don't think the Supremacy roster's anything. I mean, obviously, Optic Gaming, you're all going to know who Optic Gaming are. Formal, Karma, Scump, Crim. Straight up. Supremacy, Maxi, Vortex, Xerox, and Mals, they're all good. Like I said, they're all good players. There's nothing wrong with this team. But against Optic Gaming, damn. So yeah, we're going to move on from that one. Optic are through. Optic win that first one. They win the first one. Millenium versus Giants. Now, this is interesting because I think Giants have this really weird ability to just freak a few teams out. They don't play conventional. They're not even like fully in the European mindset. Like the French and the English play fairly often, but the Spanish just ever so often come in like a left cross. Not the strongest of left crosses. They're a good team again. They might do some unconventional things, which will throw a few teams off. But if I'm being perfectly honest, Millenium should just take them down. Millenium should have them 3-0, maybe a 3-1 if that Giants kind of craziness comes out here. But the team of Tommy, Swanee, Mad Cat, and Jerd shouldn't have any issues at this point. They're just done. There's not an issue here. And they're going against Sammy, Methods, Legends, and Toho. And I think, like I said, they're good. I mean, I don't think the Giants are a bad team. They're good, not great, occasionally great, definitely not elite. May cause an upset, but not against Millenium. I don't see it happening. If it happens, it's just mind blowing. It'd be the most ridiculous thing I've ever seen. But unfortunately, yeah, I think they end up losing that one. And I could quite easily call that a 3-0. But like I said, I'd like to throw a 3-1 in there. I think they're tricky, the Spanish. They really are. And they do have that ability to just shock teams occasionally. Like they've done it before. They have thrown Spanish in the works. Keep an eye out for their Search and Destroy. I know Millenium are a good Search and Destroy team again, which is why I'm so confident with that pick. Which leaves us with Optic Gaming versus Millenium again. Now, I'm still going to go with Optic. But wouldn't be the first time that Optic have struggled on the first day. I think it might be the second day for this one, but wouldn't be the first time they struggled to a European team either. I mean, this squad actually probably a little bit too good to do that, but I don't know. I think again, this is Optic Gaming's. It'd probably be 3-1. I want to put out there. If it goes all the way, I don't know. I think I just you can't really look past it. It's Optic Gaming versus Millenium. We saw them at Crown. Optic, they've got this. And that's nothing against Millenium. I just think if it was another Euro, I'd quite like to see Millenium against another North American team. I was quite upset that we're seeing this matchup again. I wanted to see Millenium against maybe Rise or against FaZe. I thought that would be a really good matchup. I think we've got a really good matchup with FaZe. So I'd quite like to see that. Again, Millenium have not had a great start to the season of the CWL either. So a few tricky things coming in there. But this is where they're going to be at home. Like Millenium are good. So Optic first, Millenium second. Then there's the Supremacy Giants game. And between Supremacy and Giants, I want to go to Supremacy just a little bit. both teams suffer from inconsistencies. Supremacy and Giants both suffer from inconsistency issues. Giants because they just play a little bit unconventional at times, and Supremacy because they're either brilliant or stupid, and there is very little in between most of the time. The issue being for me is that I'm going to lean towards Supremacy. Giants could very well upset it. I do think it's a lot closer game, and I do actually think it's going to be a great game. I think it'll be a great game to watch. But whoever wins that is then coming straight into this brick wall of either Millenium or, less likely, Optic. In which case, goodbye. That's it. I just don't see it happening. I mean, I quite like Supremacy versus Mill might be a pretty good game, and I think Supremacy could definitely give them a little bit of a going. Maybe 3-1 again. But I genuinely don't see it. I don't see any other result than Optic first, Millenium second, and that's it. If there's an upset, I can't see it at this point. Not in Group A, not in that first group. But that's because you've got two elite level. You've got number one realistically in the world and North America, and then you've got number one in Europe. And what can you do when you're in with the number ones? So yeah, I mean that's fairly comprehensive. It's nothing too out of the ordinary in that group. Anyway, moving on to Group B, we have Infused, Hypergames, WySix, and Vitality, two French, two English. Now this this is the slightly crazy thing is that from what I understand, these seeds were done Season 1 before Season 1 ended. Now Infused technically ended up coming third, fourth. So they've got first seed. So their groups, I'm not gonna lie, right? I'm sitting here and go, they're pretty much guaranteed to go through. There's just no way I can possibly see Infused not making this. But let's go into it. Infused versus WySix to begin with. Now, Infused, what I like about this team is what I like about a lot of things happening at the moment is there's some stability there. They keep sticking together, regardless of the reasons. It's happening. And one thing I do like is the fact that they've got this wonderful, wonderful chemistry about them now. Like we simply quick bait switches, double peaks. They're really working well as a team, and you can see that everywhere. To the point being that I'm wondering whether these players will shine as much when they first join a new team without that almost telepathic communication. But they're going against this WySix team now. This WySix team, I've not heard a lot about these players. Kiro, Gumpy Gumper, which I've heard of only because of that name. Kirby and Chucky. Now, from a purely objective point of view here, WySix about to get slammed through the floor like The Undertaker at WrestleMania. I don't even know if that's the right reference. I don't know anything about wrestling. I've just named some things. But what I do know is Call of Duty, and there's no freaking way this team is taking down Infused. It just isn't happening. If it happens, I don't even know. I can't see it. Like I try to do these on logic and what I know about the teams. I don't know a lot about WySix. What I do know that I don't know about WySix is that I don't know who WySix are, so they can't be that good. It's that simple. Because they're an unknown team, because Infused, technically have first seed, and they are definitely one of the elite level teams in Europe, this can only go one way, and I'm going to say a straight 3-0 for Infused in that one. I don't think there's any real debate necessary there, which leaves our second game, Hypergames versus Vitality. Now, this is where I get a little bit iffy on some of these, simply because I think this is a really good game, and Hypergames have started off the season just ballistic fashion, 6-0. They're top of the European CWL League. That's ridiculous, to be perfectly honest with you. And I'm not sure how long that's going to be like that. But they're going, it's Zed, Brain, Nolson, and Quicker, and they've had a few issues there. I mean, their uplink game is shaky. They're shaky in a few places, and I think that may cost them in the further tournament. But they're doing okay. They're doing, I'm saying nothing away from them. Well, they're going up against Kataga, Broken Risk, and Wailers. Now, the interesting thing for me here is that if you end up playing these on main stage, if you play Vitality on main stage, you just put yourself at a disadvantage. Because you get this, I mean, don't get me wrong, soundproof headsets and all that sort of like, but the French crowd is loud. And, Kataga could probably just scratch his nose and they'd start cheering. So every time a kill is made or a clutch, they're going to go absolutely insane. So maybe there's a home field advantage there. I mean, it's literally, it's home country. We have got a little bit of, I don't want to say conclusive, but there is, at least a thread or some stats or facts that will back up that, teams on the home ground do perform a little bit better. And even if that's just because of jet lag with the Americans or whatever, I don't know whether that goes UK to France. We definitely don't have enough kind of collection of results to figure that out. Big enough sample. I think this is probably one of the games to watch. One of the first round games to watch, certainly. Hypergames are looking great at the moment. Vitality haven't won a single series in the CWL, but that's, I'm fine with that. I think that's normal. I believe that Vitality are better on LAN, and this may be the time where they sit up and go, I'm having a bit of this. But I think that realistically, Hypergames are probably the better team. I put this is XXL, by the way, and I put them about 5th last season. They were consistently underperforming to Splyce. Splyce are actually better now. But Vitality, like I said, they were tied for that 6th position. It's close. I think it's really close, this game. I want to say that with current form, Hypergames is probably going to come into this on a high. If it goes to game 5, the French will take this. I'm gonna go with Vitality if it goes to game 5. Especially if it goes on main stage. I haven't got the exact schedule yet if it's on main stage, but if it is, I don't think Hypergames are going to hold that one together. They've been clutching up recently, but it's fine clutching up while you're in a bedroom. It's not fine while clutching up on a stage in front of 5,000 French fans who all want you to fail. So yeah, but I think I should give this to Hypergames. I really should give this to Hypergames. They should be the better team. So I'm going to say 3-1, just because I think that's where they need to win it. If it goes to map 5, I'm not 100% confident in them. But Vitality are a good squad. They really are. And I think that's where it could get a little bit tricky later on in this. So, if we're going to say Hypergames win and Infused win, that leaves Hypergames versus Infused. And Infused are going to win this. So I don't see any fight past that. They're just a better team than Hypergames, 100%. Cannot see a way past it again. And this is unfortunate because Hypergames, they could do a little bit of damage, but as long as Infused don't play terribly, like if they're just playing like normal Infused, I think Infused have a more consistent high level than Hypergames do. Hypergames can do really well, but they'll also do really badly. And there's like this big up and down with them, whereas I think Infused are just up here. It's consistently very, very good. And that means over 5 maps, you can't see anything but Infused. Which leaves us then with WySix versus Vitality. Vitality straight win. I don't have any confidence in WySix, unfortunately. They qualified, but they may have a little something in them, but I don't know enough about them, so I'm just going to actually write them off. I think that's fair enough. I don't know these players. I've heard of Gumpy Gumper only because of what people have been saying. So apart from that, that's it. Which means we actually get another game of Vitality versus Hypergames again, which is actually the way these groups should work, with the seeds actually coming back to see each other all the time. Now, a reverse play in this game, because the skill level is quite close, means that we could pretty much see anything. Like it could genuinely come down to maps here. I do want to give it to Hypergames again. If you give it to them in the first place, you got to really have it for them again. But I think the second main game might actually be closer. So I'm gone Hypergames, but I'm not really that confident on it. But like, if you're French, Vitality, we'll get this easily. I almost went a little bit French accent then. I can't do a French accent. If you're Hypergames or you're a UK fan, you'll be like, well, we're better than Vitality. We've got this. But again, because Call of Duty's on the game day, and because it'll be a second matchup, in my opinion, pretty much anything could happen. Genuinely, we could end up just seeing I'm pretty confident we'll see the two teams twice, and we'll see them play twice. So that's basically a big. That's 2 best of 5. So who comes out best in that regard? We'll have to find out. And then that pretty much sums up Group B. Which, just to sum that up, I've got Infused and Hypergames coming out, with the caveat that Infused Vitality game is a little bit close, to be perfectly honest. I think Vitality on LAN are better than they are online, whereas it's the opposite is true for Hypergames. And just to put that just to go back quickly and put that into context, Hypergames are 6-0 in the CWL. Vitality is 0-5. Does that make sense to you now? Hypergames are worse when they come to LAN, but they're still pretty good. Vitality are better when they come to LAN. So, okay, makes sense. Let's move on. Group C. Rise, Killerfish, Splyce, and Team LDLC. So Rise are the big fish coming in here. A lot of argument to be made for these guys. Certainly being able to mix it up with Optic on the best. So a lot of people, straight number 2, can definitely challenge for number 1 in the world. Straight up. And that first game is against Killerfish. This is going to be hard. I think the Killerfish roster is not a Killerfish that we've seen in the past. It's, a lot of people rely on like Kivy and Gun Elite. Whenever I think Killerfish, I think Kivy, Gun Elite, but it's not. Cosmo, Shucks, Hasbroken, and Ramba. Ramba's probably, honestly, the most well-known name on that list for me. And that's, just from Lightning Pandas. And even then, the rest of them, I just don't rate it enough. And to be perfectly honest with you, I don't need to go into this Killerfish team. They're playing freaking Rise. And this Rise team is good. It's so much better. Select, Classic, Octane, and Looney. They're gonna body him. Screw it. I'm not even gonna talk any more about that. That's one of the easiest calls I'm gonna make. Killerfish are gonna be killed. If you Conor McGregor, he's just gonna call them out in the first round. It'd be Conor McGregor was just like Jose Aldo. Aldo won't even get to throw more than 2 punches, and Rise will take him down. MMA, I've gone WrestleMania to MMA. This is what you expect now. The next game, this is a great game. This really is. And there is a caveat to this because I think I read the format correctly. I've been doing a bit of research. Splyce versus Team LDLC. So Splyce, new roster, Rated Joe, Bance, and Josh are going up against the new roster of Team LDLC XTCM, which has Brand, Niall, Shane, and Watson. Watson instead of Sunny. Now, there is a caveat to this, because I think Splyce easily got this in the bag. This is a easy one for them. Pretty standard. This shouldn't be much of a problem. Except, and this isn't except, I believe the first map they will be playing is Fringe Hardpoint. So, I think LDLC just have a great record on that map. They kill Titans on it. They don't really care. They just kill Titans on it. So, they're going to take that first map. 3-1? I'm going to go 3-1. I think the rest of it is fairly standard. I think this is a great team with LDLC, but not against Splyce. Not against their new roster. Unless there's something that doesn't click in Splyce, which I can't see happening. They've looked really good. They're a fairly slay-heavy team. They've had a decent time in the CWL so far. So yeah, I think this is not a terribly hard one to call for me. We're going to see those go in. So yeah, I think that's fairly obvious. Which means we end up with Splyce versus Rise and Killerfish versus LDLC. So Splyce versus Rise actually should be a fantastic game to watch. It's going to be a great game to see. Splyce, with the way they play, I think is a great kind of matchup for Rise, who genuinely, both these teams should match up fairly significantly well. I think the big advantage here is that Rise have more practice with their squad. Splyce do not have that depth, I think, in strategic play yet. And I think that Rise may be just a little bit better. I do expect Splyce to put on a game. I think this will be, this out of the so far what we've covered, should be one of the best games to watch of the upper bracket of the groups. Optic Millennium will be great, but we've seen that. Let's see this one. Rise versus Splyce. I see Splyce taking something, but I'm not entirely sure what yet. Maybe the S&D. Like I said, this is a good chance. I could see them taking S&D, maybe taking the uplink of the CTF. It wouldn't be a million miles away from me to actually see that happen. But when it comes down to it, I think Rise are better. I do think Rise are better. 3-1, 3-2, maybe. I'm giving a lot of credit to Splyce here, and I think that's, maybe just because I'm English. I have a lot of faith in the Splyce guys. I do think it's a stronger roster. And the other key thing to note about this game, the thing you must take away from this, regardless of the result, is it's a great benchmarking game. You have to pay attention to see how Rise match up versus Splyce, because we've only seen Splyce online so far. We've never seen them on LAN. Seeing them against LDLC will give us a sort of benchmark. Seeing them against Rise will put them in this bracket. Right? Were they close with LDLC but miles away from Rise? Were they, they're close with LDLC but still close to Rise? Is this, where are they? They could be anywhere. So that's for me the most interesting thing. But I'm taking Rise, which means we get a double matchup again. Which, like I said, this is technically the way it should work, because I'm picking LDLC over Killerfish, and I'm not even going to explain myself with that one because it's obvious. I think LDLC will do well. It'll probably actually be a closer game than I'm giving it credit for. 3-1. I'm not going to call it 3-0 with that one. I don't think it's necessary. 3-2, potentially. I don't see LDLC being that troubled by it. So that means we end up getting Splyce versus LDLC again. Same thing, no fringe hardpoint this time. It's Splyce. It's Rise and then it's Splyce. They're coming out in second place. And that pretty much wraps up Group C. Rise first, Splyce second. See you later for the rest of the year. And then we move on to the final group, Group D. FaZe, Pulse, Epsilon, and Exertus. Now, Pulse, with Tony J, Getsam, Logan, and Veziox, is a decent team. It's not a FaZe. It's a decent team, though. It's not bad. I know the name Pulse right now is just it's not great. The actual name, you go, oh, it's Pulse. What is the name Pulse famous for right now? Not winning a single game in the CWL. But throw that out of your mind right now. Just I think, if you're being perfectly honest with you, this is a straight up and down FaZe. Thank you very much. Close to enable, zoomer, and attach. Not going to have an issue here. Their first round matchup. A lot of these first round matchups on the top half of the bracket are just easy to predict. It's the same thing. You know, you get in the top seed in the group against the bottom seed in the group. Where you expect a smashing. I expect a smashing. It's not going to be a problem. So right, moving on. That does mean we are going to go with the next two, which is Epsilon, Exertus. Epsilon, Exertus. I can't wait for this game. I really can't. I think I've said a lot. This game I can't call. I want to go with Epsilon. I think Epsilon's S&D is going to hold them down. Reedy's going to hold them down. I like Exertus on the hard point. But from what I understand, Reedy has played these Exertus players. I think he's beat one of them 4 times on LAN, one of them 3 times, 2 of them once. So, he's never lost to this team on LAN, and he shouldn't do. I think FC are fairly solid. I think Exertus will have something in the pipe. They will certainly do something somewhere, so it's definitely not going to be a whitewash. It will be a close game. It wouldn't even surprise me to go all the way. Just wouldn't. And if it goes all the way, Epsi have got that secret S&D. You know, they're just good at it. The only caveat I want to go with Epsilon, this kind of portrays their entire kind of run in this tournament. And it's about Scrapsy. Scrapsy for me is a wild card for 2 reasons. One, very, very good and very, very much a heavy slaying power for Epsilon right now in the league. But if he plays the way he has in the league, oh my god. But this isn't, a small EGL. This isn't a closed bedroom, environment. This isn't even, relegation where realistically Tempo went to bits. I just saw them, they just absolutely lost all composure. And, Scrapsy was part of that group. Whether or not he did or not, it's up for debate. But regardless, their team went to bits. It's a very different ball game. Like I said, this is a big tournament. 5,000 French fans. You're not staring down the barrel of a few people. You might be staring down the barrel of FaZe or Optic if you make it out. This is genuine. This is the real game. This is exactly where veterancy comes into place, where they can just zone in. They don't get nervous. They don't worry about their stats. They're not worried about looking bad. They're just trying to win. Does Scrapsy have that yet? He could do. I'm not saying he doesn't. I'm not saying he's going to have an issue. I'm just saying be prepared just in case. It's just that wild card. He could be brilliant. Could go to bits. He doesn't have the international experience that the rest of Epsilon have. Even Sunny, who for a lot of people didn't really know a lot about him until he joined TCM and CWL, has experience and he's been good with Reedy before. So Epsilon, Exertus, I'm going with Epsilon. I think it's a safe bet. Don't think it's going to be a whitewash. Do think it's going to be close. Potential for an upset. There's potential. Just there is. So that's the one. That and the Vitality game, they're very, very close. I think they're going to be great games. Which leaves us with FaZe versus Epsilon. Now, coming into this, I've just got this feeling. I've got this really weird feeling. It's like back here. That there's going to be an upset somewhere. A North American team is going to fall in the groups to a European team, because we've seen it before. It's not the first time it's happened. I mean, Optic last time at ESWC lost to Barrage. And I feel like it's going to happen. And I don't know why. This doesn't need to make logical sense, because most of the time, if you're being perfectly honest, and I'm European and I can say this with confidence, North America, Europe. And that's a good place, North America, Europe. There's a little bit of crossover in here. We can mix it up. but North America, Europe. But I feel if there's going to be an upset, this could be it. Splyce game's quite close. The Millenium game will be quite close. But Epsilon FaZe. Epsilon may throw them off with their S&D. And if they can sneak a respawn, could happen. It could. I'm not saying it's going to. I'm saying it could. I'm still taking FaZe. I'm taking FaZe. But that's the first time we come into this top round matchups, and I'm not sure. I think Epsilon might have it. And if it was like, if you're talking maybe Infused or Mill, I'd be more confident. I may even predict an upset, but I don't know. FaZe, right now, I don't think they've looked as good as they did last year. But we'll see. We'll see. Maybe I'm wrong. I could be wrong. I think Epsilon, if I was more confident on the Epsilon squad, it'd be a bit different, but still going with FaZe. Which means, we have Pulse and Exertus in the lower bracket. I'm still gonna take Exertus, but I think that's gonna be a close game either. The Pulse could end up taking down Exertus. I'm not gonna say they will. I don't think they're good enough. I think they are a good squad, but they're just not good enough. And that's nothing really against them. The Exertus squad right now it's just pretty good. It's Vortex Desire, Dave, and Hawkeye, and we've seen how good these players have been. But at the same time, I think Exertus come back out of that, which means we should, could change a few plays. Should see the Epsilon Exertus game again. That'd be a good game. Still going to pick Epsilon. Same reason I said last time. Still going to pick Epsilon. But I think that's going to be a really good matchup to watch. These double matchups, if they do something in your head a little bit, you're like, oh, I've already played these guys. It should be easy. We're losing. And if you're losing, you're like, we're now 2-0 down. We beat these guys like last time we played them. Yesterday. What? And then it's like, oh my goodness, how can we beat these guys? And then losing them is the end because of the double elimination. So we will find out, right? We're going to find out exactly how this ends up working. Hopefully, it goes the way I've said it done. But yeah, so realistically, Group D, FaZe versus Epsilon. And to round that up, it goes the first places are Optic, Infused, Rise, FaZe. And then we have the second place of Millenium. Who did I put second there? Hypergames, maybe. Splyce, yeah, pretty confident with that one. And then Epsilon. That's another tight one. And then they're going to match up here. Now, again, this is coming into my, we get into the bracket now, and this is a random draw, so I have no idea. And it could completely skew things up here, but I think we're going to see a team drop out in this part, of an American team. They're going to lose. One of these American teams is going to lose. If they didn't lose in the group, they're going to lose now. Don't know why. Just call it statistics. Like we've seen it before. Europeans occasionally just manage to get one over the North American teams. They can beat North American teams. It's just not statistically not very likely. Maybe 30-40%. I haven't got the real statistics. I'll just make it up. 37% of the times, Europeans can beat North Americans at European events. May have, in fact, do it. But there we go. All right, so I've kind of broken it down for you in the base manner, and this is already a long video, so I'm going to try and cut it up a little bit. But yeah, that's how I'm kind of looking at these teams coming into this tournament. We've only got kind of the CWL stats to go on right now, but that is, a different environment to this. By the end of the first day, I fully expect to see where these teams are benchmarked, and then we can really go into where they're strong and they're weak, and what they need to improve on, and what's different from what we've been seeing of them recently. So I hope you've enjoyed this video. It is a little bit of a long one, so if you're still here at the end, thank you very much. Remember to subscribe, leave a comment, tweet me over the weekend. I'll be taking a vlog. Should be middling to fair. The last one I didn't like. But until then, I'll see you next time.